All right, so we have two dogs that have settled down considerably. I apologize, the lighting is a little bit light, and they're black-faced dogs, so we won't get to see your expression quite as much. But basically, what we've done is we've incorporated martingale collars, and I've basically given them a timeout. Dogs really, the more they run around, the more worked up they get. I call this the Bo Pelini syndrome. The more excited they get, the harder it is for them to think straight, and they have to settle down first. So for your dogs, when you have guests come over and they start getting all crazy, I would apply this consequence. Now I'm going to go through what I call escalating consequences here in a minute, but I wanted to kind of show you this one. This is the fourth escalating consequence I use, but I also use it in different capacity when the dog's energy level is too high. Now we want to make sure we're burning the dog's energy properly, the excess energy. It'd be cruel to do this if we're not meeting the dog's needs and depleting that energy, because it's going to come out, and that's a lot of my clients. That's why their dog's misbehaving. I have too much energy. So basically what I do is when the dog passes level 5 energy, I consider every dog having 10 levels of energy. 0 is asleep, 10 is as crazy you've seen the dog. So when the dog passes level 5 energy, I grab a leash, I put it on, and I step on the leash like I am here. And I usually give the dog just enough room to stand or sit. This is more room than I typically would give. I'm giving her more room because she's nervous because she doesn't know who I am. And I want her I'm blocking her from running away. But basically what I would do is give them just enough room to stand or sit. Now, because these guys were pulling to such an extent it was hitting their trachea and they were coughing and choking themselves, I would apply the special leash twist of the martingale like I've done there. So that way we take the tension off of the neck. Now, once I put them in this is a doggy timeout. Once I do this and I step on the leash, nobody can interact with that dog. So if the other dog is not in a timeout, it can't come over and console. And if one dog is whimpering, the other dog will probably come to try to console it or correct it, which you guys mentioned you have. So once that's the case, once the dog settles down a little bit, and they usually will throw a temper tantrum. They'll flop around. When they do, ignore them. Don't respond, because any response from you is validating. So usually after they throw out their temper tantrum, they'll sit, and they'll sit kind of like they are, like this leash is here. It's a straight line going away from me because they want to get as much distance from you as they can. Now, when the dog sits down, I take the leash, and I'm going to demonstrate it here, but she's going to move away. But what I would do is take my foot and slide it towards the dog to take the tension off of the leash. Well, there she came back. So notice how now there's no tension on the leash. As I mentioned to you earlier, there we go. This is actually a good demo. If you leave tension on the leash, a dog will always pull against a tense leash. So I remove the tension off the leash when the dog sits so that it's not, it removes that factor from the equation. Now, usually a minute later, and sometimes it's several minutes later, the dog will lay down. When the dog lays down, what a lot of people do, the mistake they do is they take the dog off the leash, they tell it did a good job, or they pet it. That tells the dog, we're done. I can go back to being crazy. So what I do is, I can't really do it here because I'm keeping the leash, but when the dog lays down, I'll show it this foot. Let's say that this line right here represents the leash. I'm standing on it like this. Once the dog lays down, I just take my foot off of the leash completely. I do it very subtly so the dog doesn't even realize that I did it. At this point, the dog is free. It can run around dragging the leash. Now, we don't want the dog to drag the leash unsupervised because it can get hung up on something and injure itself. But if we take it off right away, then it's a quid pro quo. And then, like I said, they'll go right back to what they were doing. If they stay calm a minute or two later, then you can go take off the leash. That way, they don't connect the two things. And what we're really doing is disagreeing with unbalanced behavior. When the dog gets too excited and too crazy, you lose all freedom. If you can't control yourself, I'm going to take control. Once you return to a calm, balanced state of mind, then you return to having freedom in the house. Now, like we talked about earlier, the timing of your correction is really important for this. So what a lot of my clients will do is you might have a different interpretation of level 5 energy than you. So what I would suggest is when they're just hanging out, when it's just the two of you guys, just say, oh, 3. Like, no, that's a 4. And eventually you guys will come down to a consensus and you'll be able to have the right categorization of their energy level. Then as soon as they pass level 5, you give them this doggy timeout and they wait until they're completely relaxed and then they get their freedom again. If you do this consistently enough, eventually the dogs will say, you know what? I'm just going to go to 4.9 and not go any higher than that. And then I get to continue having freedom in the house. Most dogs get in the most trouble when they're overexcited. And excited does not mean happy. A lot of humans have a real problem with that. We interpret excited as meaning the dog's happy. It can be happy and calm. It can be excited and not happy. So we just want to disagree with the unbalanced behavior. Now, normally, I'm guessing she would not be this calm with somebody coming into the house, 10 minutes ago.
Correct.
She'd be running around barking and still protesting. So we've achieved, She's not completely calm, but she's a lot calmer than she normally would be. If she was completely calm, I would let her loose, but she's still whining and whimpering and protesting, so that's why we're keeping her on the leash. But this is a technique that will go a long ways towards helping them adopt a more amicable energy level in the home.